We begin in silence. A young woman, thin, pale, her body broken, sits in a chair in the center of a crowded square. She should be screaming, but her lips are still, her eyes locked on the crowd as if searching for one person she knows will never come. The crowd murmurs, "Heretic, fool, martyr." Ropes creak. A bag of gunpowder is tied around her neck. The executioner steps back, but what no one here knows, what even history has buried, is that this woman's death was never meant to be quick. Anne Askew's fate was not simply to burn. It was to be broken, piece by piece, until she was no longer human, and yet still breathing. Tudor England, an age of power, paranoia, and flames. It was a time when faith could save you, or damn you. For Anne Askew, a noblewoman of rare education, her words were more dangerous than any weapon. She questioned the king's laws, defied the priests, and believed in a faith forbidden by Henry VIII himself. The crown would make an example of her. But unlike most who bent under the weight of the rack or recanted at the stake, Anne refused. What followed was one of the most harrowing sequences of torture in English history, so brutal that even the executioners hesitated. And yet, she would not speak the names they wanted. The candle flame dances against the darkness of Anne Askew's small London lodging. It's past midnight in March 1546, and the scripture lies open before her, forbidden words in a forbidden tongue. English translations of the Bible are contraband in Henry VIII's England, punishable by death. But Anne's fingers trace each verse as if her life depends on understanding every syllable. Perhaps it does. The knock shatters the silence like a hammer against bone. 3 sharp raps. Pause. The sound every Protestant in London has learned to fear. Anne doesn't flinch. She closes the Bible, slides it beneath a loose floorboard, and smooths her dark woolen dress. When she opens the door, 4 men in the king's livery fill the narrow doorway. Their leader, Sir Martin Bowes, removes his cap with mock courtesy. "Mistress Askew, you will come with us." No explanation, no warrant read aloud. In Tudor England, the king's word is warrant enough. The streets of London blur past in the pre-dawn darkness. Cobblestones slick with March rain reflect torchlight like scattered coins. Anne sits straight-backed in the cart, her hands folded, watching the city she may never see again slip away in shadows. They don't take her to Newgate prison with the common criminals. They don't take her to the Fleet with the debtors. The cart rumbles toward the Guildhall, and Anne knows what this means. Political prisoners, religious dissidents, people whose words have reached ears they were never meant to reach. The interrogation chamber smells of parchment, candle wax, and fierce sweat ground into the wooden floors by decades of desperate feet. 3 men sit behind a table laden with documents. Anne recognizes one, Edmund Bonner, Bishop of London, his face carved from granite and just as warm. The others are courtiers, dangerous men who serve dangerous masters. "Sit," Bonner commands. Anne remains standing, a tiny act of defiance, but in this room, tiny acts can cost everything. "You are accused," Bonner begins, his voice echoing off stone walls, "of distributing banned religious texts, of preaching against the king's supreme authority over the Church of England, of denying the miracle of transubstantiation." Each charge hits like a physical blow. Anyone could send her to the flames. "These are grave accusations," Anne says, her voice steady as church bells. "May I know who brings them?" The men exchange glances. In the corner, a clerk's quill scratches against parchment, recording every word for posterity or for evidence. "Your accusers are not your concern." The second man speaks. His doublet is rich velvet, his fingers heavy with rings. A court insider. "Your concern is your soul, woman. Confess your heresies. Name those who shared in them, and the king may show mercy." Anne's lips curve into something that might be called a smile if it reached her eyes. The expression unsettles her interrogators more than tears or pleading ever could. "Gentlemen," she says, "if my soul concerns you so greatly, surely you can understand why I cannot lie to save it." The temperature in the room seems to drop. Bonner leans forward, his bulk casting a shadow across the table. "You misunderstand your position, Mistress Askew. We are not here to debate theology. We are here to extract names, your Protestant friends, your financial supporters, your fellow enthusiasts." He spits the last word like a curse. "Someone taught you to read Greek and Latin. Someone gave you these forbidden books. Someone encouraged you to preach in the streets like a common heretic. And if they did, then they will burn alongside you." Silence stretches between them, taut as a bowstring. In that silence, Anne hears the truth beneath their questions. This isn't about her faith. It's about something far more dangerous. The network of Protestant nobles and merchants that grows stronger each day. The whispered doubts about Catholic doctrine in palace corridors. the possibility that reform might spread beyond Henry's control. They need names, they need confessions, they need to cauterize this wound before it festers. I have committed no crime, Anne says finally. Reading scripture in my native tongue is no sin. Believing in salvation by faith alone is no heresy. And if the king's law says otherwise, she pauses, meeting each man's gaze in turn. Then perhaps the law needs examining. The admission hangs in the air like smoke. Bonner's face darkens to the color of dried blood. Take her to the Tower, he says quietly, and send word to the Lord Chancellor. Tell him we'll need special persuasion. As the guards step forward, Anne feels the weight of what she's unleashed. Not just her own fate, but the fate of every Protestant in England may now hang in the balance. Her silence could save them. Her confession could damn them all. The heavy doors swing shut behind her with the finality of a tomb ceiling. But echoing through the stone corridors comes a whisper that chills the interrogators to their bones. Anne Askew is still smiling. The Tower of London rises from the Thames like a stone tumor, its walls black with centuries of soot and suffering. Anne's cart rattles across the drawbridge as ravens circle overhead. 47 of them she counts, as if cataloging omens might give her some small measure of control over what's coming. The constable of the Tower, Sir John Gage, meets them at the gate. He's an old soldier, scarred by French wars and Scottish raids, but his eyes hold something Anne hasn't expected: reluctance, perhaps even regret. "Mistress Askew," he says, removing his cap, "I am instructed to question you further." The euphemism fools no one. They descend through narrow stone passages that grow colder and damper with each step. Torch brackets cast dancing shadows on walls streaked with moisture and something darker, stains that tell stories no one wants to remember. The air tastes of metal and despair. The torture chamber sits beneath the White Tower like a secret heart. It's smaller than Anne imagined, barely 15 feet square, but every inch is purpose-built for breaking human bodies. Iron rings embedded in the walls, chains hanging from ceiling beams, and in the center, illuminated by a circle of torches, the rack. Anne has heard descriptions, but seeing it steals her breath. It's elegantly simple: a wooden frame with rollers at each end, connected to gear wheels that can be turned by handles. Leather straps dangle from the rollers like severed limbs. The torturer emerges from the shadows. He's not the monster Anne expected. No hulking brute with filed teeth and scarred knuckles. Instead, he's ordinary, middle-aged, balding, wearing a leather apron over clean linens. He might be a baker or a carpenter if not for the calm expertise in his voice as he explains his craft. The beauty of the rack, mistress, lies in its precision. His words echo off stone walls with professional pride. A quick turn stretches the joints. Another separates tendons from bone. The body tells us exactly how much it can endure, and then we exceed that limit by careful degrees. Sir John shifts uncomfortably in the corner. Even seasoned soldiers have limits. "Your name, mistress," the torturer continues, approaching a wall where various implements hang like surgeon's tools. "The names of your supporters, the source of your income. These details, freely given, will spare you considerable education." Anne looks around the chamber at the chains, the brazier glowing red-hot in the corner, the wooden frame that has claimed so many others. When she speaks, her voice carries across stone like a prayer. "I fear no pain you might inflict upon this flesh, but I will not purchase my comfort with others' lives." The torturer sighs, not with cruelty, but with the weariness of a craftsman facing a stubborn material. "Strip her," he tells his assistant. "Secure the bonds." Anne's hands shake as rough fingers tear away her woolen dress, her linen undergarments, until she stands naked in the torchlit chamber. The cold bites her skin like tiny teeth. She's led to the rack, her wrists and ankles secured with leather straps that smell of previous victims. The first turn of the wheel is almost gentle, a stretching sensation, uncomfortable but not yet painful. Anne closes her eyes and recites scripture silently. "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." The second turn brings fire to her shoulders. The third forces her first involuntary gasp. By the fourth, joints begin to separate with soft popping sounds that fill the chamber. "Names," the torturer says conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "Just a few names and this ends." Anne bites her lip until blood runs down her chin. She will not scream. She will not give them that satisfaction. But when the fifth turn comes, her body betrays her. A strangled cry echoes off stone walls. "Lady Catherine Parr," the torturer suggests helpfully. "The Queen herself has Protestant sympathies, has she not? Surely naming her would be no betrayal." Another turn. Anne feels her left shoulder dislocate with a wet tearing sound. The pain is beyond description, a white-hot explosion that obliterates thought, prayer, everything except the immediate, animal need to make it stop. My faith," she gasps between ragged breaths, "is my own. I drag no one else to these flames." The torturer pauses, studying her face with professional interest. Sweat streams down Anne's body despite the chamber's chill. Her breathing comes in shallow pants, but her eyes remain fixed on the ceiling stones as if reading some invisible text written there. "Remarkable," he murmurs to his assistant. "Most confess by the third turn. The body simply cannot." Anne's laughter cuts through his words, not hysterical but genuinely amused, as if she's heard the punchline to some cosmic joke. You think this flesh matters." Blood flecks her lips as she speaks. "Break every bone, tear every joint. You cannot touch what matters." The seventh turn renders her unconscious. When she wakes, the torture has resumed. Her right hip has been pulled from its socket. Her wrists hang at impossible angles. Yet somehow, impossibly, she finds strength to whisper, "I forgive you." The words hit the torturer like a physical blow. In 30 years of professional breaking, he has never heard those syllables in this chamber. Sir John steps forward, his face pale. Enough, she'll never speak. But as they carry Anne's broken body back to her cell, a disturbing truth settles over the tower like fog. They have shattered her bones, but somehow, incomprehensibly, her will remains unbroken. In the darkness above, the ravens cry out, 47 voices announcing that something unprecedented has occurred in this place of endings. Anne Askew has survived the rack and emerged victorious. Westminster Hall has witnessed the rise and fall of kings, but today it hosts something rarer, the trial of a woman who refused to break. Anne arrives in a chair carried by 4 guards, her body so destroyed by torture that standing is impossible. Word of her ordeal has spread through London's Protestant underground like fire through dry kindling. The gallery overflows with curious nobles, nervous clerks, and merchants who whisper behind gloved hands. Some have come for spectacle, others for something approaching pilgrimage. The chair is plain wood, but Anne transforms it into a throne through sheer force of will. Though her arms hang useless at her sides and her legs rest at unnatural angles, her spine remains straight, her chin raised. She surveys the packed hall with eyes that have stared down demons and found them wanting. Lord Chancellor Wriothesley presides, his face a mask of judicial solemnity that cannot quite conceal his frustration. This should have been simple: extract confessions, implicate Protestant nobles, eliminate threats to Catholic restoration. Instead, 3 months of torture have produced only silence and an inconvenient martyr. Bishop Bonner reads the charges in Latin, then English, his voice echoing off vaulted ceilings. Heresy, sedition, denial of transubstantiation, distribution of banned books. Each accusation carries the same penalty: death by fire. "How do you answer these charges?" Wriothesley asks. Anne's voice, though weakened by pain, carries clearly through the hall. "I answer that I have committed no crime save believing what Christ himself taught, that salvation comes through faith alone, not through the intermediary of corrupt priests." Gasps ripple through the gallery. Even broken and facing death, she attacks. "You deny the miracle of the Mass," Bonner interjects, leaning forward like a hunting hound catching scent. "You reject the authority of Holy Church." "I reject the authority of any institution that places itself between God and his people," Anne replies. Christ needs no interpreter save Scripture itself. The theological debate that follows would be fascinating if not for the predetermined outcome. Anne, despite her physical condition, matches the bishop's point for point in Greek, Latin, and English. Her education shows not just in languages, but in the dangerous art of making complex theology accessible to common ears. And that, Wriothesley realizes with growing alarm, is precisely the problem. During a recess, urgent whispers fill the chamber. In the gallery, Protestant sympathizers lean forward, hanging on every word. Anne's calm defiance in the face of judicial authority is creating exactly the opposite effect intended. Rather than terrorizing potential dissidents, her trial is inspiring them. "Mistress Askew," Wriothesley says when proceedings resume, his voice carrying a new desperate edge, "the king's mercy is infinite. Confess your errors, name those who led you astray, and you may yet live to see another sunrise." The hall falls silent. Everyone present understands the subtext. This is her final chance. Recant, betray her friends, and survive. When she opens them, something has changed, not weakness, but a terrible transcendent clarity. "My lords," she says, her voice growing stronger with each word, "you offer me life at the cost of my soul. You ask me to purchase breath with betrayal. But what profit is there in gaining the whole world if one loses one's soul?" She pauses, her gaze sweeping across the packed gallery, touching faces of nobles and commoners alike. "I have been stretched upon your rack until my bones separated. I have been offered luxury, comfort, even freedom. Yet in that chamber of horrors I discovered something you cannot comprehend. Truth is not subject to torture. Faith is not diminished by fire, and some things matter more than this temporary flesh. The words hit the assembled crowd like physical blows. In the gallery, several women weep openly. Even some of the judges shift uncomfortably in their seats. You fear my words more than my actions, Anne continues, her voice rising to fill every corner of the great hall. You torture my body because you cannot break my spirit. You burn my flesh because you cannot extinguish my faith. But every flame that consumes me will kindle 2 more. Every death you decree will birth 10 more believers. Lord Chancellor Wriothesley pounds his gavel, but Anne's voice carries over the noise. I go gladly to these flames, knowing that my death will accomplish more than my life ever could. In breaking my body, you have forged something stronger than steel. In silencing my voice, you ensure it will echo through generations. The hall erupts in chaos, shouts of heretic and martyr mixing in the air like opposing armies. Wriothesley pounds his gavel repeatedly, calling for order that will not come. When silence finally returns, his voice carries the weight of inevitability. Anne Askew, you are hereby sentenced to death by burning at Smithfield. May God have mercy on your soul. Anne smiles, genuinely smiles for the first time since her arrest. He already has, my lord. He already has. As the guards lift her chair to carry her out, Anne's voice rings out one final time. Remember this day, good people of England. Remember that when they could not break my faith, they chose to break my body. And ask yourselves which of us is truly defeated. The great doors of Westminster Hall close behind her, but her words linger in the air like incense, touching hearts that will carry her message far beyond the reach of flames. In trying to destroy Anne Askew, the Crown has created something far more dangerous than a heretic. They have created a symbol. Dawn breaks gray and cold over Smithfield on July 16, 1546. The market square, usually filled with merchants hawking meat and grain, has been transformed into an amphitheater of death. 4 wooden stakes rise from a circular platform, surrounded by bundles of dry wood and barrels of pitch. The air already carries the acrid smell of preparation. Anne's cart rumbles through London's narrow streets one final time. Word of her execution has spread through the city like plague, drawing crowds that spill from windows and doorways. Some come to jeer at the heretic. Others come to witness what they suspect might be something sacred. She lies propped against rough hemp sacking, her broken body unable to sit upright without support. The weeks since her trial have not been kind. Her joints, pulled apart on the rack, have healed incorrectly, leaving her limbs twisted at unnatural angles. Yet her face remains serene, almost luminous in the morning light. Beside her in the cart ride 3 other condemned souls: John Lascelles, a gentleman caught distributing Protestant literature; Nicholas Belenian, a priest who refused to acknowledge papal authority; and John Adams, a tailor whose only crime was reading scripture aloud in English. Each man stares ahead with the hollow-eyed look of those who have made peace with approaching death. But Anne watches the crowds with bright, alert eyes, as if memorizing every face she'll never see again. The cart lurches to a halt at Smithfield's edge. 1,000 souls have gathered, perhaps more. They press against wooden barriers erected to contain their bloodlust or sympathy depending on their faith. In the crowd's front ranks, Anne glimpses familiar faces: merchants who once bought her family's grain, servants from noble houses where she once dined, even a few women who attended her clandestine scripture readings. They have come to see her die, but in their eyes she reads something unexpected. They have come to see how she dies. Sir John Gage oversees the proceedings with grim efficiency. 4 chairs have been chained to the stakes, a grudging concession to Anne's condition. She cannot stand to burn, she will sit in flames instead. The executioner approaches her cart, his face hidden beneath a leather hood. His voice, when he speaks, carries an odd note of respect. "Mistress, I am instructed to offer you gunpowder." He holds up small canvas bags, each no larger than a child's fist. "Tied about your neck, it will hasten matters, end the pain before it truly begins." Anne studies the bags with the dispassionate interest of a scholar examining ancient manuscripts. How thoughtful. "Yes, I'll accept your kindness." The admission surprises him. Most martyrs refuse gunpowder, seeing quick death as somehow diminishing their sacrifice. But Anne understands something they do not. The power of her death lies not in its duration, but in its meaning. As the executioner fits the small explosive around her neck, a priest approaches with final rites. Father Martinez is young, earnest, genuinely troubled by his duty to absolve the unrepentant. "My child," he says, kneeling beside her cart, "even now God's mercy awaits. Confess your errors. Accept the Church's authority. Let me absolve you properly." Anne turns her head slightly to meet his eyes. When she speaks, her voice carries no anger, only infinite sadness for his misunderstanding. "Father, you offer me forgiveness for sins I have not committed, from a church that has forgotten its own foundation, but I forgive you your good intentions." The priest recoils as if struck. In her response, he hears not the ranting of a madwoman, but the calm certainty of someone who has wrestled with angels and emerged victorious. The guards lift Anne from the cart with surprising gentleness. Her broken body weighs almost nothing. The rack has compressed her frame into something barely recognizable as human. Yet when they place her in the chair and secure the chains, she holds herself erect through sheer force of will. Around her, the other 3 condemned men are similarly positioned. Lascelles weeps silently. Belenian prays in Latin. Adams stares at the sky as if reading signs in scattered clouds. But Anne surveys the crowd one final time, her gaze lingering on Protestant faces she recognizes. To each she offers a slight nod, not farewell but acknowledgement. They understand. Her death will be their beginning. Lord Chancellor Wriothesley reads the death warrant from a wooden platform erected for dignitaries. His words are lost in the crowd's murmur, but the ritual must be observed. English law demands proper procedure, even for burning heretics. The executioner approaches with his torch, not the dramatic brand of legend, but a simple oil-soaked rag wrapped around a wooden staff. He moves methodically, lighting the dry kindling at each stake's base. Small flames lick upward, releasing wisps of smoke that make the crowd's eyes water. Anne feels heat against her feet first, a gentle warmth that might be pleasant on a winter evening. But warmth becomes heat, heat becomes fire, and fire becomes an inferno that climbs her body like a living thing. The pain, when it comes, exceeds even the rack's torment. Yet somehow, impossibly, Anne finds her voice one final time. "Lord, into thy hands I commend my spirit." The gunpowder ignites in a brilliant flash, visible even in daylight. When the smoke clears, Anne Askew's earthly suffering has ended, but in the crowd something new has been born. The witnesses disperse slowly, carrying her image seared into memory, a broken woman who could not be broken, who transformed a moment of defeat into victory eternal. By evening, her story will travel beyond London. Within weeks, it will cross oceans, and in Protestant hearts across Europe, a dangerous question will take root. If Anne Askew could face such death with such courage, what else might be possible? The flames at Smithfield burned for less than an hour, but their light would illuminate England for generations. Anne Askew's name became a whispered prayer in Protestant households, proof that martyrdom could triumph over monarchy. Her words, preserved by those who witnessed her trial, circulated in secret manuscripts that passed from hand to hand like forbidden treasure. To Catholic England, she remained what she had always been, a dangerous heretic who got precisely what she deserved. But even her enemies could not deny the unsettling power of her death. A woman who should have broken had instead inspired, a body destroyed by torture had somehow achieved a victory that no torture could touch. Her execution did not end the Protestant cause in England, it inflamed it. Within 12 years, Anne's tormentors were dead, Wriothesley of natural causes, Bonner in exile, Bishop Gardiner fallen from power, but Anne's words lived on, growing stronger with each retelling, each secret sermon, each quiet moment when someone read scripture in English and remembered the woman who died rather than renounce that simple rite. When Elizabeth Tudor took the throne in 1558 and restored Protestant worship to England, Anne Askew's name was spoken aloud in churches for the first time. She had become what her executioners most feared, not a silenced heretic, but an eternal symbol of faith triumphant over force. Even in death, Anne Askew had kept her promise. She would not be broken.